I'm thrilled to kick off this event. We've got a phenomenal lineup ahead of you, so let's get into it. We want to thank all the marketers, sponsors, and you, the audience, for helping us make this event possible. Throughout our event, we will have a Q&A widget down at the bottom of your screen, as well as a chat widget. And we encourage you to engage with our speakers and the other attendees using those throughout the program. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Chad Wilson, the Vice President and Executive Creative Director of Marketing from Grand Canyon Education and Grand Canyon University, and their moderator, JC Kalachek. JC, please tell me if I totally butchered that. The Senior Vice President of West Coast Sales at Cadent. Welcome, guys.
Hello, thank you.
All right, and I'll let JC hop on and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Carrie. That was very close. It's Kowalik, but it's a tough one. Hey, Chad, how are you doing, bud?
Good, JC, nice to see you today.
Great to see you. Great to see you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's kind of funny how we're talking to each other, and we can't see anyone else. It's kind of like the Stranger Things, the upside down. Like, Dustin, are you out there, Dustin? But Chad, when I was prepping, when we were prepping for this, and it reminded me 7 years ago when we met back in your Phoenix office, and it was me, you, and Jim Tricarico, and Jimmy told a story, as he always does, and had us laughing for a good 20 minutes. But once we stopped laughing, you started telling us about GCU's mission, your vision, and the values. And I think what I walked away from that meeting was I was really impressed, honestly, at how passionate you were about not only your job at GCU in general. So, and I can tell just working with you over the years that you're just as passionate today as you were back then. So I'm really excited to chat with you today about a topic I know is dear to your heart. So why don't we just jump in and let's start off by talking about GCU's growth and how does purpose-driven marketing play a role?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much, JC. It's been a wild ride. I've been working on the brand going on 13 years now, and it's been amazing growth. Geez, from 2009 to present day, the growth at GCU it's exponential. The growth story goes something like this. President Mueller and his executive staff came to GCU in 2008, and they saw a real opportunity with the school. Christian University, very, very small footprint in Arizona. I think there was recognition in Arizona of 11% of Arizonans knew of GCU, and 9% of them thought that GCU was near or in the Grand Canyon. So there was a lot of work to be done, but they saw an opportunity. So what they did was they knew they didn't have a lot of money in the bank in terms of endowments or anything like that. So they took their idea to the street and went IPO, got some initial funding early on, and brought that money back in to build out technology and academic infrastructure at the university and started the build out. At the same time, they started to leverage their online degree program offering nationwide. So that was the beginning of what we're seeing now. And through the years, they've been able to grow the student base from about 900 students on campus back in those days of 2008, 2009, to roughly 23,000 this past academic year on the Phoenix campus. And from an online student base, it went from, I don't know, around 10 or 11,000 up to where we're at now, which is around 95,000. So the growth, collectively, we're talking about 120,000 students across the US that attend GCU. That growth in that amount of time is pretty remarkable. In 2018, the university went back to its nonprofit status. It's recognized as a 501c3 entity in Arizona, and the IRS recognized it too as a nonprofit entity. And it's been a big change. But the one thing that I think is super interesting about this is without that focus and the ability to bring in funding like that, we wouldn't have been able to scale at the size that we're at today. And I think that with that leadership directive, they always kept the eye on the prize of, we have to keep the focus on academics, being an NCAA participant in athletics, and all of those traditional university things. And it's been amazing to just see how that leadership has taken hold and seen the growth and success over these years. And just being able to be a part of that and get to tell student stories along the way has been amazing. And I think kind of tying that whole kind of growth story to purpose-driven marketing, the university leads by example. It's amazing the purpose that the executive leadership group and the board has really been able to execute. It's fantastic to just know that it's what the university talks about from a purpose-driven perspective. It's evident in how they operate, but it's also evident in how the students respond and how the students go through their journey, whether it's a bachelor's degree or a graduate degree of a couple of years, or even a doctoral degree journey that takes many more years than that to accomplish. So it's remarkable. So I think one thing that I think would be very helpful, and we have a video that we can play. The leadership team just reformatted their mission statement, and we put a video together. And I think we have it here. We can cue it up to play. I think that watching that and just kind of understanding that perspective will help the audience here understand where the foundation of purpose comes from with GCU and why that's so important. And then we can get into many different things as we go along today. I'm not hearing sound.
Hold on one moment, guys.
As a Christian university, we believe in a Christian worldview, grounded in its conception of humanity for the purpose of God's plan. We offer this mission statement in order to outline the biblical vision for flourishing and to provide insight into GCU's unique approach to Christian higher education. We encourage our faculty, staff, and students to find their purpose in Christ, following Him through academic disciplines and vocational paths. GCU believes that a mission statement is more than just a summary of values. It expresses how we live out our ideals, a guiding light for the way we embrace our purpose every day.
GCU is a missional, Christ-centered university with an innovative and adaptive spirit that addresses the world's deep needs by cultivating compassionate Christian community, empowering free and virtuous action, and serving others in ways that promote human flourishing.
We believe that GCU is the only Christian university of its kind. We aim to not simply teach, but provide a path to moral, emotional, and spiritual well-being. It starts with our heart for service. We're bringing integral programs to life that award scholarships to students in need who are poised for success. We're pairing integrity with achievement by helping students develop ethical businesses that solve the world's problems from a higher purpose. Because integrating work with a Christian perspective into the free market system bears value and allows you to put your faith into action to help transform communities. It's the simple idea that business elevates humanity when practiced consciously. GCU is fostering meaningful partnerships with organizations to better serve individuals and communities at home and throughout the country. We're so grateful for our vibrant and welcoming community. All those who come to GCU with open hearts and loving spirits acquire the tools to make an impact and elevate the human experience.
Through academic excellence, the university equips students with knowledge of the Christian worldview, instilling in them a sense of purpose and vocational calling that enables them to be innovative thinkers, effective communicators, global contributors, and transformative leaders who change their communities by placing the interests of others before their own.
At Grand Canyon University, we seek to serve others first, living out our purpose by honoring God in all that we do. We've shared our mission with you. Now it's time to share it with the world. Mission matters. Find your purpose and serve others in ways that promote a flourishing existence for all of humanity.
It's a powerful video.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, that mission statement is really deep, and that narration of that video goes into a lot more detail. But the mission statement itself is super powerful. When you talk about human flourishing and purpose-driven action, and how that ties in with higher education, it's an unstoppable collection of ideals. And I think that when you look at purpose for what it is, we're all born with purpose. We all have our lives. We all navigate through the world in our own ways. But when you get to the opportunity to earn a degree, whether it's a bachelor or graduate degree or doctoral degree, how can you leverage not only your education, but that deeper sense of meaning and how you can impact your community, your family, your community, your neighborhood, your city, your town, and ultimately others. And I think that when you look at how those things intersect, education and that purpose, you have something to behold. And I think through that lens that GCU has, that Christian worldview, it really crystallizes purpose. And then it just brings it all together in a very unique way. So GCU has a unique position in the marketplace because of that.
Yeah, you sure do. We talked a little bit yesterday about, some brands, they kind of check the box on some of these things, but, do the words and actions of GCU leaders reflect the values of your brand?
Yes, I think that they do. And I'll go through a number of things that are in action. They've been in action for many years, back to those early days, 2008, 2009. But what's different, I would say, than other brands that look to purpose-driven marketing, and not all brands are this way. So this is a very general statement, and I'm not trying to say that it's bad. It's just different. They may be looking at how their ESG scores or metrics need to be altered. So they have to look at what programs or what purpose-driven things can we add to our marketing mix, really messaging mix, to align with some of these really important things, right? Whether it's a social cause or some other thing that is important for the brand. And then and I don't want to say manufacture, because it's not necessarily manufacture, but they have to work a little bit harder to develop what that is. With what I've seen at GCU, the action is in the way that they live out the servant leadership, how they live out conscious capitalism, and what does that mean? So let me go through kind of 5 major points to a directive that's under President Mueller, and so his 5-point plan. So early on, when GCU started to build out the campus, the goal was to generate jobs for the community. GCU is located in inner city in West Phoenix. A lot of crime in that area. It's gone down. I'll get into some of those stats, but one of the ideas was let's build an infrastructure so we can bring jobs to this part of the valley and regenerate some growth in this part of town. So there's been about 14,000 jobs developed since GCU has kind of had this replenishment of activity. They've spun off 12 different enterprises that are connected to the university. They have a beverage company. It's called Grand Canyon Beverage Company. There's a number of locations around campus. They have an ad agency that rolls up to our department at GCE. They have a printing promo company that students get to work in. There's a golf course and a hotel where students get to work and learn hospitality and things like that. And there's all of these different, like, really cool enterprises that generate jobs for people in the neighborhood and others around the city. What's interesting about that is when you become an employee, salaried employee, you get the opportunity to have tuition benefits. So if you're somebody in that inner city and college was just something that was never on your radar or anything like that, this job will give you the opportunity to have earn a degree for almost $0. There is some exchange of money for different supplies and things like that, but generally the tuition benefit covers that, and it's for yourself, your spouse, and your kids. So it can change the nature of your family tree by just simply being a part of one of these jobs or careers at GCU. So that's a major impact, and that's been happening, like I said, for more than 13 years now. The other component to the 5-point plan is safety, and they've partnered with, GCU's partnered with City of Phoenix. Since that partnership back from those days, 2012 to 2021, crime has gone down 24%. That the crime impact is property and violent crimes have gone down 24% since this partnership with Phoenix Police. Habitat for Humanity, GCU has the largest Habitat for Humanity partnership in the country, and the goal is to serve community members, 800 community members, and refurbish their homes, whether it's landscaping, new paint, X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of volunteer hours that go into that, over $29,000. There's been 4.6 million raised for that effort since the inception of that program in 2015. And the median home values in the neighborhood since 2011 in the 85017 zip code have gone up almost 800%. So there's definite impact. That place, that whole part of town is revitalizing. The last two pieces of the 5-point plan that I think are really indicative of what we're talking about in terms of purpose and service and community service are, one is called the Students Inspiring Service Scholarship Program. And what this is if you're a high school student in the neighborhood over there and you're struggling, you can come to GCU and go to their A Center where they have tutors. The tutors in the A Center are college students, and they can tutor these high schoolers, and they also tutor middle school and even into elementary in some cases. But you can go and get help and get your academics for mathematics, communication, English, writing, etc. Tuned up. And if you as a student start to perform well, you could earn or be awarded a scholarship. And if you are awarded the scholarship and you accept it and you become a GCU student, it's now on you to work in the A Center and become that tutor for the next group of students that are needing help. So it's a cyclical kind of students inspiring students to have higher education at your fingertips. And many of these students, college is just not something that's on their radar. It's just unfortunate thing where they're not. So when they go and they get help for just getting through high school, and it turns into this opportunity to go to GCU on a 4-year full paid scholarship, that's an amazing thing, and it changes families. There's been 545 total full tuition scholarships since the program started. They're serving more than 5,200 K-12 students with over 65,000 visits since 2013 in the A Center. This is amazing. The awardees, the ones that get the scholarship, their GPAs entering the program or entering their first year at GCU is 4.1 GPA. So these are kids that are struggling in remedial math and English and some of those core courses in high school, and now they're entering college with a 4.1 GPA. That's amazing change. The last piece I wanted to mention about the 5-point plan is the CityServe. CityServe is a national organization, and they partnered with GCU locally here in Phoenix to be kind of a huge warehouse hub. And what this program does is they partner with big box stores, Targets, Walmarts, you name it, Costco's. When there's a package damage or anything like that, those businesses don't put those objects on the shelves to sell in their stores. They send them back, and most often those products end up in the landfill. So what this program does is it intercepts those injured items when they're not. It's just the boxes were messed up or etc. They come into our warehouse. Now there's what we call pods. Those pod distributors go throughout the community. They meet with community folks. They learn about their story. They learn about how the needs and their situation. And then these pod leaders will come to the warehouse and get whatever it may be that will help these families or these individuals in their life, whether it's cribs or bunk beds or a toaster oven or a bike or whatever the thing is that they need to help them to along their way. And the stories are unbelievable. There's been about, since this project started a year and a half ago, there's been about 6,100 volunteer hours, 1.1 million in pod distribution. So of total value of content, 1.1 million has been distributed, impacting over 4,700 families. A couple of quick examples. One was a family of, I think, 4. They live in a studio, small studio apartment, and they were all sleeping. Mom, dad, and the 2 kids were sleeping on one bed together, a queen size bed. And through this partnership, we were able to bring them bunk beds so that the 2 kids could have their own bed to sleep on, and allow the parents to have their own bed as well. And it seems small, and we may all take that type of thing for granted, but that impact changes their family, gives them a different perspective, helps them out. So amazing work. So again, GCU's living the purpose through these service programs, and these are just the major ones that I just spoke about. There's countless other ones that happen on a yearly basis.
Those are awesome programs. Really great. Okay, let's so GCU's brand values, how do they align with the values of your customers or your students?
So I think what I just went through is a really interesting segue for this question, because through that servant leadership perspective and that service, we're out there, GCU's out there, and they're living that, right? So when we're connecting through messaging, through purpose driven marketing, we're reflecting the values of service in the messaging to our potential students, and we do that to just highlight these moments that the prospects can see how serious GCU takes those things. So it's a quality, it's a character trait, right? So when we're talking about these values and these and how they're reflective in the work that we do, it's living by example, it's showing, and what we've seen with the response is the marketplace, the potential student saying, that's how I am, that's how I live my life, and I want to be associated. I want to go to a university that reflects those same values that I have, and I want to be there, and I want to be able to help and contribute to the larger good. So it's almost a reflective kind of symbiotic relationship through that understanding that purpose comes from a higher power. Purpose is driven through it manifests itself in so many different ways through academics and serving the community and all these other things. But this reflective nature living the word and following in those footsteps, and then seeing how it impacts through our messaging the potential students of all different segments of our targeting is really interesting. I don't know if did I answer that directly enough? I can
Yeah,
also.
you did.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
you did. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your creative, right? What are
Okay.
some of the characteristics you say that really define GCU's creative?
When we're talking about the creative messaging, I sort of touched on it a little bit ago. One of the phrases that I use when I describe GCU's strategy overall is that what we're really trying to do is to create undeniably authentic stories, and we share those stories. So what does that mean? A lot of people use this term authentic storytelling. It needs to be authentic. Yeah, it absolutely needs to be authentic. When we're messaging about things, no matter what your brand product is or service is, it should come from an authentic standpoint. So that to me is the pinnacle. If we can meet that undeniably authentic storytelling benchmark, then we're winning. So what does that actually mean? Well, we have, like I was indicating before, we have so many stories of lived experiences through all of our students that attend GCU, whether it's an online student or a traditional campus student that comes and lives there 4 years at GCU, or they're a doctoral learner who's already gone through education through bachelor's and graduate degree, and now they're earning their doctoral degree. Their stories are lived, and not all stories are equal, right? There's a lot of people that have had a lot of different trials and tribulations. They've overcome a lot. And then there's the opposite. There's a lot of people that, we service. This is actually a really good point, and I'll get back to kind of the storytelling. One of GCU's major positions and points is to provide Christian education to all socioeconomic classes of Americans through an affordability model that they have. And when you look at doing that, that's the true equalizer. Higher education can be that true equalizer in society that really levels the playing field for everyone. So when you can offer access to getting a degree to all different socioeconomic classes of Americans, you can really see change happen in the world, which is fantastic. So when we're talking about these undeniable, authentic stories, we tell them through all different lenses. We tell them from, like one online student posted on her Facebook page that she was graduating, and she had struggled in her earlier years because she grew up in a really rough family environment. She found herself in her later teens being in adult strip club, going down a very negative path. And in her latter 20s, early 30s, she was given this opportunity to see Christ, and it kind of changed her perspective on the world and wanted to make a difference in her life. And one of her friends recommended GCU to her, which was symbiotic in the story. And from that moment, her life started to change. She started to have a different approach to life. She met a man who changed her life as well. They've grown together. They got engaged. They got married while she was going through her bachelor's degree program. Our student services advisor group, you're assigned one of these student service people when you're a student, and that person had become friends with this student and got to see this transformation play out over the degree program. We did a campaign with her, and it told her full story. It was really emotional. She's now in the master's degree program, and she wants to become a doctoral degree student after that, and use her learnings and her passion for changing young girls' lives that may have been on a similar path as her, and get them out of that. And so it's a beautiful thing that's happening. And that's just one story. The other storytelling virtue that we have is there are so many amazing stories, and there's almost an amalgamation of, there's like these trends that happen with different students across our different programs and different bachelor's, graduate and doctoral degrees, that you start to see these similar trends happening with some of these stories. So you can take bits and pieces of those and create different stories that really tell a unique impact story. So one that I have to show with you or share with the group today, if we have time for it, is one of it's a multi-generation Hispanic family. And this story came from a number of different students, and one of them is just graduated, and he was in that Students Inspiring Students group, and he graduated this last April, and he got his degree in computer science, and he's thriving, and he's an amazing person. But if we want to get into it, we can show this video. So this is a multi-generational story about this family migrating from Mexico to the US and planting them in Arizona, and then how that story unfolds with how GCU intersects with their lives. So if we want to play that now, that would be cool. Or, okay, here we go.
I think I'm gonna do Grand Canyon University's online program and get my master's degree. But I have a career now. I don't know if I can do school and work at the same time. And I love my job. I don't want to risk that. But I know I can advance even further if I do it. My abuelita's dream was to come to this country so her family could get an education and have a better life. She told my father when he was young, "You must get a degree, provide more for your children." She told me, "Mijo, stop picking your mocos and finish your homework." Abuelita, my father, my whole family, and the education I received at Grand Canyon University made me the man I am today. She and my abuelo were young when they got married.
¡Ay, qué bonita niña! ¡Ay, qué bonita niña! No, así. Deja, mejor yo lo hago.
Neither of them had finished high school before they came to this country. She took care of the children, and my abuelo worked a physically demanding job to support the family.
Hola, ¿cómo están?
Ay, qué bueno.
Hi, tía.
Hola.
Both of my parents were high school graduates and had decent jobs that supported me and my siblings.
Would have been faster if Dad didn't take so long picking out which cookies.
Ándale.
Hey, I got it. You ever doubt your pop? All right.
And even though I know my father was appreciative of his parents' hard work, he wanted more for us. That's why he ended up enrolling in GCU's online program to finish his bachelor's degree. My mom took on extra shifts at work. And when both of my parents were busy, I spent a lot of time with my tia. I know that I wouldn't be where I am right now if it weren't for my family. I don't know, I really want to do this, but I also don't want to leave one thing I love for another thing. I don't know.
La vida es muy difícil, pero también es muy hermosa. Tú eres fuerte. Trata de llevar a tu familia en el corazón y lograrás lo que tú quieres. Estoy muy orgullosa de ti.
It always motivated me to be better.
Gracias, abuelita.
I really wanted to make them proud. And I wanted them to know that everything they did was worth it.
En nombre del Padre, del Hijo y del Espíritu Santo. Amén. Démonos las manos. Señor, te damos gracias.
Use some of the salsa too. I have an announcement to make. So I'm going to get my master's degree in computer science online at GCU. I know that I wouldn't be where I am right now if it weren't for my family. Because of them, I was able to attend college full-time and earn my bachelor's degree. And because of them, I'm able to go back and get my master's degree. My gratitude is never ending. And though I can never repay them for everything they've done for me, that won't stop me from trying. Everything I do for them.
It's a great story. Really nice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece, and like I said, there's elements that are 100% real, and that's that undeniably authentic piece that resonates. And you know, the cynics might say, well, what's going on with messaging like that? Well, we have examples of life-changing moments through that Students Inspiring Students program. We have real life evidence of all of those things that are in that story that are true. And that goes back to living that purpose as an institution. And it's just proof that when you're talking about purpose, the purpose is in the student. All GCU is doing is they're fortified with rigorous academic programs. They're fortified with amazing athletics. They're fortified with all of these different things from the ACE Center, the faculty and the staff and the community there. They want to help serve students to crystallize their purpose that's within them so that they can go out and literally change the world in their communities, globally, whatever their passion ultimately is. I think that's the major difference, is that when we talk about finding your purpose at GCU, it's allowing GCU to be that foundational piece for you as that student with that purpose inside you to lock it in and figure out what direction you really want to go. And GCU is there to help you in that endeavor, is as much as you want to put in, as much as they're going to put in. GCU service is top notch. And I've worked in a lot of different industries in my past, and I will tell you the service that institution provides their students is unbelievable. Everything is measured, everything is tracked, everything is reviewed. It's a very organized and structured institution, and it's all set up to service the student in the best way possible. It's pretty remarkable.
Well, it comes through all of the videos and creative, and it's really a wonderful thing. And you kind of just touched on it. I think we got maybe 2 more minutes here. You touched on it a little bit, but I'll just ask it, like, how do you measure whether GCU is living up to its purpose?
Yeah. Yeah, I did kind of touch on it. Everything that GCU does regarding those initiatives that I talked about and the countless other ones that are being worked on daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, it's all reviewed by their business units or their groups, and it rolls up and everything's tracked, everything's measured. Everything goes back to, are we making an impact in academics? Are we making an impact in sports? Are we making an impact faith? Are we making an impact in the community? Are we making an impact to the greater good in the country? How are we doing in it? And all the data that is captured and analyzed is throughout the entire organization from top down. So when things don't work, it's not the end of the world. It's like, okay, we learned a lot from that. So what are we going to take from those learnings, and how can we take those learnings and move them into a new direction? So not everything that happens is perfect right out the gate. I think that's something that we all as folks that work in business, no matter what area, or in education, what area is, like, how can you improve and grow and change and augment and keep driving? So we measure everything based on how the responses are and the efforts at play, and when we change is needed.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Chad, very much. It was a wonderful story, and thank you for your friendship over the years. Really appreciate it. And
yeah,
I'll pass it over to you.
And I just want to thank you both. I also, Chad, would really like to adopt that grandmother from the video. She's just the cutest thing ever. Just want to thank you guys both for joining us and sharing your great stories with us today.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
And then we're actually going to move into our next session, which is a little bit special. We have previously had this group speak before. So please welcome back Davis Smith, the CEO of Cotopaxi, and Rachel Cohen, the manager of corporate sales from Quantcast.
Much for sharing your story. Davis and I spoke as we prepared for this, and I have to say I listened to an interview that Davis did, so it was really nice to hear about you following up with Edgar and hearing more about his story. Something that Davis and I spoke about as we were preparing for this is just about how business leaders have a responsibility to focus on more than just profits. But I'm wondering, and I, completely agree with that. And that's, if you know more about Davis's story and Cotopaxi, you know that that's always been his focus. But I'm wondering, in addition to sustainability being good for the world, in your experience and for Cotopaxi specifically, how have your sustainability efforts been good for the brand and the business overall?
Yeah, I did believe from the very beginning that doing good was going to be good for business. And this is when I moved back from Brazil, I went to Silicon Valley and I started meeting with investors, impact investors, angel investors, venture capitalists. And I ended up meeting with 100 different investors to pitch this idea. And I faced a lot of rejection. People that questioned whether I could really build a brand that was sustainable if we were giving away money from the very beginning before we ever made money. But we ended up having some investors that really believed in us and that stood behind us. And so Kirsten Green from Forerunner Ventures was our first backer. I think, we've learned a lot of great lessons, but that number one, I think we validated this idea that if you choose to do good first, that customers will back you. They'll believe in the mission. And if it's done authentically, they'll want to be part of that because you represent values that they also care about. There were some lessons also that we learned that I hadn't really anticipated. One of the things that I didn't really expect to see was the benefits of our ability to attract and retain talent. And so there's a role that I'm searching for right now that we ended up having 1,000 applicants for this role. And I never saw that in my previous businesses ever. I mean, nothing close to this. And when we see applicants, it's everything from young people saying, hey, I'm in college and I'm just so passionate about the brand. I'll come sweep the floors. I'll do anything. I just want to be part of what you're doing. And then we have people that are at the tail end of their career saying, I've spent a really successful career in whatever industry, and I just want to finish my career somewhere that matters, that's aligned with my values. And so I think this is something that speaks to people from every generation, every gender, every color. Like, I think as humans, we care about others. That's what makes us special and unique, is that we care about each other and we try to look out for each other. And we have this desire to make the lives of other people better. And sometimes we don't really know how to do it. So when we find out something that really speaks to us and to our hearts, it's something we want to be a part of. We want to be part of that movement. So we certainly felt that.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up, talent and your team. One thing that I really like about your story and Cotopaxi is that when you, we're starting out, you were thinking, yes, sustainability in terms of the environment is important. We definitely want to be aware of that. But the main focus for you was always helping other people, and especially, people that you knew from living in other countries that, were in extreme poverty. But then, on top of that, something I've been thinking about a lot, I shared with you that I attended a brand insider summit, hearing from a lot of retail brands a couple of weeks ago. And something very unexpected for me, at least, is that because of the pandemic, people and talent is such a priority at all levels of a business, for every brand right now. And it's part of their brand image. How do people understand the employees of a certain company to be treated? How are the employees essentially representing that brand at every level? So I'm wondering, at Cotopaxi, how do you get your employees involved in your sustainability initiatives, and how has that kind of benefited your team?
Yeah. So, this has been something that's been important to me. Something I've talked a lot about it within our organization is being a keeper of the flame. We can't create a movement and can't be part of changing the world if I'm the only one that is holding the flame, that is the flame bearer. We need every person in our organization to be a keeper of that flame. We need our customers to be keepers of the flame. And so the way we do that is by engaging people and allowing them to be part of this movement. And so we started that by, the day that we launched our brand, we started with an event called the Questival, which was this 24-hour adventure race. And it was a pretty crazy event. We got a couple llamas off the classifieds, and we went around college campuses, and people came up to us to take selfies with these llamas. And then we tell them about this new brand that we were building, about this event, this 24-hour adventure race. And we had thousands of people that participated in that first race, and we gave them hundreds of challenges to go out and spend time in the outdoors with their friends, and to go do good in their communities. And they got points for doing these different kinds of activities. And we ended up having 30,000 social media posts of people out living the brand, and everyone that did the race got one of our backpacks. And so that was kind of the start of like saying, hey, we want other people to be part of doing good with us, not us just doing good ourselves. And our team, same thing. We started, in our early team, there were just about 6 of us that when we started, and then we slowly added a few more people. And that card writing program that I talked about, the refugee card writing program, that was an idea from an intern of ours. When we first started the business, I was doing the handwritten thank you cards to every customer. I knew it wasn't scalable, but I wanted those early customers to know how much it meant to me that they were supporting us. And this intern said, hey, I know that you're worried about that. You can't keep writing these thank you cards, but what if, she's like, I know how passionate you are about refugees. And I was starting to get involved in some refugee programs here in Utah when I moved here from Brazil. And we came up with this idea together with this intern. And so, same with the Del Dia line of bags, those really colorful, one-of-a-kind ideas. That wasn't an idea I had. It was an idea one of our product designers had, knowing how much we were passionate about the workers in the supply chain, and how do we make their lives more fulfilling? How do we make sure that they're paid fairly? How do we make sure that they have work that allows them to use their skills and talents and develop professionally? And so, a lot of the very best ideas we've had as a brand have come from our team, by empowering them and by basically inviting them to be part of this exploration with us of how we make the world better.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I have one more question that in the interview that I listened to that you did, and you kind of alluded to this a little bit in your talk at the beginning, but I know that the very first company that you started was a website called pooltables.com. And in the interview that I, listened to with you, you talked about how, you knew you wanted to do good in the world. You thought, if I can make some money, I can turn around and use that money to fund initiatives that are important to me and will help other people. And so, you started this business, pooltables.com. Fast forward many years later, you start Cotopaxi, and you go about starting Cotopaxi in a very different way. You held yourself to very high standards. Cotopaxi is a B corporation. You knew that giving back was going to be inherently part of the business. So I'm wondering, what is the challenge of, or what is the difference between starting a business, with those sustainability standards from the outset versus taking an already successful business and, turning it around or making it be more sustainability focused?
Yeah, this is a fun question. So, when I was in college and I came back from Peru, I thought I would pursue this path of working for a nonprofit. I thought that was maybe my life's calling. And it was a mentor that I met in college that kind of redirected me. And he'd been a successful entrepreneur and had become a philanthropist. Had started a nonprofit in the Philippines that was fighting poverty. And I wanted to work for him. And I tried to convince him to let me go work for him and to expand his program from the Philippines to Latin America, where I'd grown up. And he instead told me that if I really wanted to make a difference, I shouldn't go work for a nonprofit or for him. I should go start my own business, and that down the line, I'd be able to make a bigger impact and find my own way of making an impact in the world. And so that put me down this path of entrepreneurship. And I knew nothing about business. I hadn't studied business. I'd studied international studies in undergrad. But I had this idea, a random idea. I kind of dabbled in a few different ideas. A couple actually, they had social impact connected to them, but the ideas didn't work. They as I tested them, they kind of failed. And but I found this other idea, which was to build a company called pooltables.com, which was this idea of building our own brand of pool tables and then selling them direct to consumers online. So kind of one of the earliest direct-to-consumer digital brands. This is in 2004. So the internet was, relatively new. E-commerce was relatively new. But the brand had no social impact at all. And all the passwords of that business were connected to social impact and helping children in poverty and other things. And so it was in my heart, but like, I just didn't know how to connect business and doing good. Like, it just wasn't obvious to me for some reason. And so I thought, maybe I just need to learn how to build a business first. So I spent about 6.5 years building that business. And, it was a great first time, experience as an entrepreneur. Our first year, we did about $1 million in sales, and then we kept growing from there. And after 6.5 years, my cousin and I sold the business. And then we went off to business school, and my cousin went to Harvard Business School. I went to the Wharton School. And then when we graduated, we moved down to Brazil and built our previous business. And so, when I started building Cotopaxi, I wanted to build it completely differently than I'd ever built another brand. And it started to become more obvious to me how I was supposed to connect impact and brand and business. And, you mentioned this interview that I did a couple of years ago with Guy Raz, with How I Built This Podcast. And it was a really fun conversation. And he asked a lot about that pool table business. At the time, I had no intentions of ever being involved with that business again. I sold it, a decade before. But last year had an interesting opportunity where I still owned a small part of the business. And the guy that we'd sold it to was retiring, and he had 17 different businesses that he'd kind of gathered over the years, and he was selling them all. And he'd found a buyer for the business, a small publicly traded company that was going to buy the business. And at first I was glad for him. I was like, good for him. That's great. And the more I thought about it, the more I just felt like I had unfinished business. Like, that brand was my first attempt at entrepreneurship. And I really wanted to do good, but I didn't know how, but I know how now. And so I ended up buying the business back. I paid a lot more than I sold it for, but I believe in the ability for business to make an impact. And this business had been profitable for 18 straight years. And I just thought, I'm going to go convert it to a benefit corporation. So I bought the business the first day. I converted it to a benefit corporation. And now we're working on creating a plan where this business can help us go fight poverty alongside Cotopaxi. There are some unique challenges, with a brand like Cotopaxi that starts from the beginning with impact at the very heart of the brand. In some ways it's easier because you're so committed to it from day one, and you can kind of build everything around it. At the same time, it's really hard because you have no money. And so you're donating and giving away money before you've ever made money. And that was incredibly stressful. Where with this pool table business, it's been profitable. So in a lot of ways, it's been a lot easier because we have the resources to go have impact immediately. And so, but it's been a fun thing to kind of see the challenges that come with taking an existing business and converting it to a business that's doing good versus doing it from the start. But my hope is that I can prove that no matter what the business is, no matter how old it is, no matter what industry it's in, you can go do good. And if a pool table business can go make a difference in the world, so can your business. So that's what I'm hoping we can prove.
Yeah, I love that message. And I think too, just with your idea of doing capitalism differently, and no matter what your role is or what business you're in, you can do good. You do have an impact on the people around you, the people you work with every day. So I love that. That's great. We got a few great questions from Jeffrey Hilder in the Q&A. I think the one it might make sense to ask you first is just as a purpose-driven brand, how are you and your team measuring success?
Yeah. So, obviously there's a few ways that we measure success, and some of those are financial success and some of those are impact success. And obviously we need to measure both of them. We can't have success with our social mission if we're not having success as a business. So, I'd say that's one of the things that really matters to us. The last 3 years we've been profitable, and that was a really big milestone for us because I knew that we couldn't sustainably do good if we weren't sustainable ourselves. So that's of course a very important measure. And we've seen some very exciting things there. This year we're going to double our revenues. We'll double in size this year alone. And so we're seeing a lot of really fun growth in the business. But of course, what's most exciting to me is the impact that we're having. And so that's what I wake up thinking about every morning. It's what gets me out of bed and keeps me so excited about what we're building is the impact that we can have. So last year we helped almost 1.3 million people, living in poverty. And so that was just a massive milestone. The first time we've crossed that million people mark. We have an impact report that we publish every single year that kind of outlines our impact and talks about our impact partners, talks about those 3 pillars that I mentioned before: education, healthcare, and livelihood training, and where we're focusing those dollars. And of course, it's not just money that we donate, but we also are team volunteers, and we have a lot of impact through our supply chain and other things that aren't necessarily reflected in a dollar amount that's donated. We also, last year in 2021, we donated over 200,000 face masks to communities in need, which was about $700,000 worth of impact as well. And so these are the kind of things that we just are very passionate about. And I'm not an impact expert. Something I'm very passionate about and I'm learning. But we've hired some really great people on our team that are experts and that make sure that we're doing this in the right way. The first year in the business, I ran the impact side of the business as well. And it was really fun. At the same time, when we brought someone on that knew what they were doing, man, it was a game changer. And we just started doing things in a much more disciplined way. I think we hired a chief impact officer before we even had a marketer on our team. And you can imagine what my board thought about that. They were really questioning whether that was the right place to be investing dollars that early in the business. But I just figured if we couldn't figure out a way to give better than anyone else and do it in the most sustainable way, in the most impactful way, we had nothing. That was really, the entire brand was built on this idea of giving. And so I wanted to do that right. And so I think that's been an important part of our impact is making sure we have impact experts that can come in and help us make the best decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of leads to another one of Jeffrey's questions and something I've heard you speak about. It's tough, I think, to, as a brand, know the impact that you're truly having. You've talked about kind of, making some mistakes and learning things in the beginning to understand how best you can do this. And I think we've all heard of brands that, are intending to make some kind of positive impact and then have unintended consequences, or maybe aren't doing everything that they say that they're doing or something like that. So Jeffrey's curious, how do you balance the purpose messaging or letting, the world know about all of the good things that you're doing with the sales messaging and letting people know about your product? And, I would almost take it a step further. How do you make it so that you're not just trying to not make it seem like you're just trying to do these good things to sell more stuff, essentially?
Yeah, no, that's really important. When I had the idea for the business, I went and met with a couple of friends of mine from business school who had started Warby Parker, and they'd invested in my previous business in Brazil. I'd done a small investment in Warby Parker when we were still students. They were still selling out of their apartments, like just very, very small business still. And so we'd been friends and kind of been rooting for each other's success. And I outlined to them like this idea of building this brand, the Cotopaxi, around impact. And one of those co-founders mentioned to me that, he really felt that I needed to be careful to not lead only with mission, that I needed to have, I really needed to have great product as well. And so, because every time I talked to him about the business, it was about the mission and the purpose. And he's like, make sure that you nail the product, because you have to nail that as well. And it was, it was really great advice. And because I'm so passionate about the mission that I tend to lead with that constantly, whether I'm talking to an investor or to consumers or even like this presentation, right? It's like, I'm not even really talking about the product. I'm just so passionate about what we stand for and our purpose. And so it is a tricky balance of how do you balance these two things? And I'd say we've probably erred on the side of always having our mission first and talking about that. At the same time, if you go to our Instagram, there's a lot of imagery that's around the product and around, people using the product around the world and kind of the aspirational aspect of the brand. And so it is tricky. And I don't know that we've actually totally nailed it either. Like I just had a conversation with our executive team yesterday about how, and our impact team and our brand team about how I want our impact to be more at the forefront of the brand. Like this cannot be on the periphery of who we are. It can't feel like an afterthought. Like this needs to be deeply woven into everything that we're doing. And so again, I would probably lean more towards talking about the purpose than selling. just because it's my inclination. That's what I'm really passionate about. And I think if you do it right and you do it authentically and it's real, consumers are very smart. They know if it's not real. They know if you're doing it because you're trying to get something out of it, or if you're doing it because it's something that's authentic to who you are. And so, but it is a tricky balance, and not every business has gotten it right. And I will maybe just add, Rachel, that I think it's okay if a business is trying and maybe they fall short. I'm not saying that they can misrepresent. Obviously, that's unacceptable. But I think a lot of businesses are learning how to. They've been around for a lot of years, and they're trying to figure out how they can be part of this movement. And I want to be careful. I don't want to criticize any business that's using their resources to go do good. My hope is just that all of us are learning, and that we can find better ways over time to do it more authentically and have better impact. And I hope that more and more businesses move in this direction. And I think it's young people that are going to make this happen. They expect it out of the companies they work for. They expect it out of companies they support and buy from. So I'm very optimistic about the future of business. I think capitalism will absolutely change in a massive way in our generation or in the next generation or two because of the expectations of young consumers and the young generations.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I like that perspective of yours, because I think that it is all about authenticity. If brands are authentically trying to do something good, they're inherently going to make mistakes, and it's about owning those mistakes and moving forward and just trying to improve, like, we're all trying to do in our roles all the time. So I'd like to know a little bit more about your advertising model. I mean, I think this kind of goes into what we were talking about, and really a lot of the retailers that I spoke to a couple weeks ago did talk about this millennial and Gen Z audience and how they can really sniff out anything that's not authentic. So I think that's part of this conversation as well. But I know too that, as you talked about, I feel like your first advertising activation involved llamas and college campuses. So how have you all evolved since then, and how do you focus your marketing efforts?
Yeah, so there's definitely not a silver bullet. I know when you, as an entrepreneur, you start a business and you just think, oh, if I could just find that one thing that like changes things and that like gets me on the map or that gets this business to work. The reality is that there isn't just one thing. You have to do 1,000 things really well. And I'd say with advertising, yes, those events, those experiences that we created with Questables were really impactful in the early days. We had that first event in Salt Lake City where we're based, and then we had the next one in San Francisco, and then we had one in Las Vegas, and then Seattle, and we started doing them all over the country. And we had over 100,000 people participate in those early events where people were actually living the brand. And I think that's why the event worked, is like it wasn't just us trying to sell something. It was allowing people to go live the brand values that we had of adventure and giving back and serving others and creating memories together. And so those experiences were really important. But of course, you have to be good at some of the traditional marketing, digital marketing, making sure that you're efficiently acquiring customers and creating awareness around your brand. Of course, there's PR strategies around, how do you make sure that you're in the press and that people are talking about some of the good things that you're doing, or how you're building a brand differently. There's ambassadors, brand ambassadors that, and influencers through social media. And so, I'd say we do all of the above. You have to do all those things really well. I think, really probably the most unique thing though that we've done is that idea of creating experiences that allow people to go live the brand, and not just through Questables, but through other opportunities of service and giving back. We hold a lot of events around supporting refugees, and I think those are always great activations that allow people to go not just donate, but to actually get involved in some of the good work that we do.
Absolutely. In the interview I listened to with you, you talked a lot about how Cotopaxi was a digitally native brand. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how you all built up your digital presence and how you sort of balance that with your presence with your brick and mortar stores and the retail partners that you work with?
Yeah, so this term digitally native brand, I think it emerged maybe in the last like 6 or 7 or 8 years. And It's something obviously that had existed before. I mentioned the pool table business being like one of the earliest digitally native brands. And what I mean by a digitally native brand means a business that started and emerged online first. And that primarily their primary sales channel was online. And so a lot of digitally native brands have become omni-channel brands where they're not just selling online, but I mentioned Warby Parker. There's another brand started by another classmate of mine from business school called Allbirds, another called Harry's. These really fun brands that have been built around not just selling online, but they have physical retail stores of their own. Many of them actually sell their product through other retailers. Like, we sell our product through REI and through hundreds of other small boutique outdoor retailers. And so, I think, this is an evolving, digitally native brands are evolving. We're not just online. We don't only sell digitally, but we have this DNA as part of our brand that we emerged online first, and that we understand how to acquire customers online. And it's unique because a lot of, in the outdoor industry, for example, there's so many brands like, Patagonia has been around for 50 years, the North Face for 60 years, Columbia for 70 years. These are brands that didn't understand e-commerce and the digital consumer, as well as maybe small emerging brands like ours. And so it was an advantage that we had. And of course, we also start moving in the direction of some of these more traditional brands of selling through other retailers and other things. But that digital DNA is an important part of why we exist and how we compete.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that, of course, being digital and having that kind of be the beginning of your brand probably helped you all during the pandemic and everything that's been happening the past couple of years. Can you speak a little bit about just some of the challenges that your brand went through during the pandemic, but also some of the ways that, you've talked about some of the ways that your team really came together and how that inspired you as well?
Yeah. So I'm sure everyone's really exhausted talking about, the pandemic, right? But, there were some really great lessons learned during these last couple of years. And, for us, our revenue was cut in half in March. So instantly, the first impact, interestingly, was e-commerce. It was like, that's where we saw the first signs of softening, and we knew something was happening. This was in the first week of March. Our e-commerce sales started sliding. And then, by March 13th, we closed our retail stores. Many of our retail partners closed their stores. And a lot of our corporate partners that were buying product, jackets or bags for their corporate events or for their teams, many of them started coming to us saying, hey, we want to cancel that order. And it was terrifying. I was very nervous. And, but we met on March 16th, Monday. I had an all hands meeting, our first virtual meeting. And I told our team, I basically outlined a plan of how we were going to get out of this. And it involved everyone taking some collective sacrifices, but we all rallied together to protect each other and our team. I invited everyone to innovate and to think of ways that we could double down on our mission. I made a commitment that every dollar that we'd made in commitment to giving back would go to giving back. We would never use those dollars to support the business. Even in a crisis, like I felt that was very important. And I said, let's find now a time, like in this crisis, this is the time where we can show our true colors. And let's give back more now than we ever have. And we actually gave, in 2020, we gave 3 times our commitment. We commit to 1% of revenues. We gave 3%. We gave every dollar that we could to giving back and to supporting our community. And because of that, we ended up seeing a really great response from consumers. In Q3, the most outdoor brands that we had data for, which most, a lot of the public brands, they grew 2% year over year in Q3 of 2020 compared to Q3 of 2019. And that was like their first up quarter. Q2 was really down for most of these brands. Q2, we were flat somehow. And then in Q3, we grew 96% over the previous year. Since the beginning of the pandemic, our revenues are about 4 times bigger than they were. And this is more growth than our industry has seen, but it's because I believe we've been so committed to our social mission and that people feel that connection to that. So, I'm really proud of the response that we had during a really challenging time. Really proud of the team and how we rallied together. And we made some big changes, some really big changes in the business and how we operate because of COVID as well.
Yeah, I love that, how you talk about how perhaps, the growth that you all have seen is connected to just consumers thinking more about the companies that they're invested in and what those companies' values are. I think that's absolutely, probably contributed to the success that you all have had despite, everything that's going on. Somebody asked a great question, and I should say, if folks aren't familiar with the Cotopaxi products, I guarantee you've seen people walking around in brightly colored jackets and backpacks that have the little llama logo on them. They do have some really, really cool products. We have a store here in San Francisco. And so John Graydon asks, why did you choose apparel as your business model? And why did you choose that as kind of the vehicle to give back?
Yeah, so a few thoughts on that. Number one, I did what I knew and understood, which I hadn't built an apparel brand, but I understood e-commerce. And so I kind of gravitated towards the idea of building a brand that I understood. As someone who loves the outdoors and loves adventure, this is a category that I'd always had some interest in. And I felt there was an opportunity to build something that really scaled. I knew that if I wanted to build something that could truly impact poverty and truly help eradicate poverty, I needed to be able to build something that could really be big, like $1 billion business or bigger. And so I felt in this category, while it's very crowded, the outdoor industry has so many brands, and a lot of investors didn't invest in us because of that. They felt it was a very challenging category. I felt there was an opportunity to go build a brand differently. And so that was kind of why I chose this category. When we launched the business, we launched with 5 backpacks. We didn't have any apparel to start. And then about 6 months later, we launched our first 5 jackets. And so we kind of gravitated towards packs and outerwear for a couple different reasons. E-commerce is challenging when you have a fit issue. So for example, shoes, e-commerce shoe companies really struggle, and there's some big ones that have emerged, but they're challenging because shoes, the fit can be really challenging, or even bottoms can be a challenging business because people have, unique fits. They want it to fit right. Where backpacks, they're made to fit any body type. They can adjust. And so the return rates I knew would be a lot lower. Outerwear, if you have a jacket, you kind of know if your size is maybe small, medium, large, extra large, double extra large, you kind of know your general size. And so return rates I knew would be a lot lower. So that's one of the reasons also I kind of gravitated towards these categories that maybe fit wouldn't be as quite a challenge as it maybe is for some other products.
Nice. I like that. And I know that your first company you started before Cotopaxi was an apparel company too. So yeah, like you said, that was an industry you knew. And I wouldn't have even thought about the fit challenges, but that's absolutely a concern for anyone who orders things online is, oh, am I going to have to return this?
All right, and thanks one more time to Davis and Rachel for that great conversation. And if you could help me welcome our next group of speakers, we have Sabrina Cherubini, the SVP of Brand and Digital at Hanky Panky, and moderated by Rachel Wentner, Brand Partnerships and Head of the Entertainment Vertical at Outfront Media. Welcome to the stage, ladies. Well, actually, Rachel, are we just one more second for Sabrina, it looks like. But Rachel, if you could pop your camera on. There she is. How's it going, Rachel?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks. My little Zoom is giving me a hard time with the background.
Well, you can be in your actual office and not in your virtual one. That's okay too.
I think we got a couple minutes here, right? We were slated for 11:40.
Yeah, we're a smidge early, but that's okay.
Imagine that.
we can just vamp it up, you and I.
Let's do it, girl.
I love it. It's a double Rachel moderator too, because we've Rachel and Rachel. It was great. It was like
I know. I was like, wait, is
two in
she
a row.
talking about me? She couldn't be
What,
talking about
Rachel?
me.
Like to keep everybody on their toes.
Right? I'm so annoyed though that my little background won't work.
Oh, it's all good.
How's it going?
Good. I'm very grateful. My dog decided to just stop barking right as we came back on. So,
Oh,
so it's always a good sign.
we're finished with school over here.
And where are you? Where are you out of?
Los
Rachel?
Angeles.
Oh,
So
nice.
So the request has been made to maybe go on a long walk with the dog during this, but we may get a little VIP background moment from Miss Penny Lane herself. We'll
It's
see.
all good. That's the cutest name. I love it.
Thanks.
Oh.
Oops. Still messing around. Oh, I think I got it.
Oh, and it looks like Sabrina is stuck in a meeting. Do you want us, Brianna, do you want us to just hide for another 5 or 10 minutes until she can make it, or how do we wanna? All right, we will do that, Rachel. If you and I, we can pop off camera
Great.
and mute, and then as soon as Sabrina gets out of her meeting, we'll go for it.
Fantastic. Talk to you in a minute.
All right. All right, and the gang's all here. Hi, Sabrina.
I'm sorry I was in the waiting room for some time.
But we've got you now. So thank you so much for joining us today. Rachel, I will actually turn it over to you and let you take it away.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for getting us together, Carrie. Sabrina, lovely to see you twice in 1 week.
No, it's a busy week, but very great to be with you.
I didn't know you, and now it's all this time together. I love it. I'll get us kicked off. I was gonna brag about you for a moment and introduce myself, and then I'll turn it over to you, and to go in a little bit deeper, and we'll get into the agenda for the day. But I feel very fortunate. First of all, I loved our conversation the other day, and on the heels of it, just kind of going back in and taking a look at all that your LinkedIn profile has to say, building powerful brands and turning data and consumer insights into innovative integrated marketing strategies. Couldn't be more true on all of the things.
It's a long sentence though.
It's okay. We got to really pack it in there on that space in LinkedIn. We're all guilty of that. But it was a really inspirational conversation. It's funny, I had just been chatting. We mentioned that school's coming to an end, and we were having a conversation. I asked my 15-year-old if he knew what purpose-driven marketing was, and he was like, "Well, if I had to guess, this is what I would think it would be." And and we had just done laundry, so I was like, and there was some of this in my laundry as well. Not that you want anything to do with that at 15-year-old, but really, I think in terms of what we dug into and really learning a lot about your background, and I think I personally was really inspired, and I think my brand loyalty to Hanky Panky, drove up many points yesterday on the heels of our conversation. But, the experience that you have, the collaboration that you talked about as it relates to, how do we continue to go down this path? It's such an important and timely, conversation, and has been for many years. So many brands do have brand purpose at their DNA, brands who are, 50, 60, 100 years old even. But I love how much it's continued to bubble up. And I think how sort of the competitive nature of brands doing good has become such an important conversation that all boats are kind of rising with that tide, and that can really only be a good thing. But
And I forgot about purpose for a long time, like being obsessed by, data and, performance, that I'm so glad, it's coming back, into the discussion.
And exactly, when it's done right, it feeds that full funnel. But a little bit more on you. So, inspirational collaborative leader, motivating, mentoring teams, demonstrating the power of consumer-centric thinking, fast-paced environments from huge companies to startups, and the efficacy of all of that. So I'm really excited to dig into all of that with you. Quickly about me. So I, was introduced by Carrie at Outfront Media. I've been here a couple of years, a long digital background like you as well. But one of the things that I really love most about being at Outfront, and incredibly relevant to today's topic, is brand purpose is so much a part of what we're able to do at the company, because we are, the biggest, most premium out-of-home company in the US. We are firmly rooted in culture, and therefore able to shout out large and important messages in culture to the masses. And so with it being such a wild couple of years, Jody Sinisi, our CMO, had leaned into that wholeheartedly. So, to make our purpose as visible as possible for as many as possible. So whether partnering with the CDC, all throughout COVID, working on the program #GrowStronger, where we were helping small businesses with stimulus programs. We've leaned into sort of every relevant month you can think of. So taking women's history into Women's Her Story and playing off of that and shouting out incredible stories across the US. Same for Black Lives Matter. With One Pulse Foundation, we just launched as well. We have a huge LGBTQIA+ program happening now that actually features a ton of our own, clients. So if you're a part of it, it's live and you're listening, go find your billboard out there in the US. It's wonderful to have that kind of, feedback loop. And we've continued to do that, as it relates to kind of anything that can be purposeful in the world around us. So enough about me, but I think we sync really well on this topic, and I'm so excited to dig in and give you to our audience. So if there's anything you want to share about yourself, go ahead now, or I can kick off this first question and you can certainly integrate it into it. I think it's very relevant.
Yeah, I think just one thing about, like, even if I have a long sentence, what I was, lucky to do when, during my background, it's really working in like global advertising agencies. So I work with like global brands and really talk about, their purpose and their development and their brand strategy, as well as working in, public companies, like in apparel, mostly these large corporations, and now being like in between in a smaller private brand that is like female-led, purpose-driven. So I'm hoping today I can also provide some, insight as to, what I learned along the way with different facets of what, being purpose-driven means.
I think you will. So let's dive into it. So when it comes to communicating with your consumers, how do you think about brand purpose, and how does that approach or impact your approach to marketing rather? So tell us the hanky panky origin story, because it's so good and I didn't personally know it, and get into the brand DNA and share some of these great examples that you have.
Yeah, I think I need to integrate that in what I will be saying, but I think brand purpose is everything. When you work in advertising agencies, when you try to drive, creative thinking, innovation, campaigns that will kind of reach hearts and wallets at the same time, you have to be purpose driven. You have to want to be bigger or bring something that is higher than just your product and what you want to sell. And that I started with that, right? Like how can I inspire the best creative directors out there in London, in Paris, where I started, was the first step into it. And then purpose became for a long time like a second thought. Like a lot of things were data driven, performance driven, everyone focused on digital, and I did too. I developed like this background in CRM and really understanding customer data. And then I would say the brand purpose sometimes was just, something that the brand marketing team was passionate about. Maybe your CSR team was passionate about, and maybe just, you had the opportunity to go in a town hall of your like a large corporation and talk about the purpose, but it was not something that was always core of the business and how we run a business. And I think that's why the pandemic happened. A lot of people like us started to think about is it what I'm doing right, and am I impacting positively society, people, the planet, whatever is your thing. And that's why I joined Hanky Panky, because I got to meet the founders. They're still around. And they created this brand in 1977, two best friends. So imagine first, like two women creating a brand. In 1977, they were already very bold. They're still very bold and around. So female funded, female led, and now employee owned. This brand grew no matter what, still growing a lot. And the employees now own the company. So just that, I found that it was just amazing to start working for a heritage and legacy US brand. I won't be mistaken if I say that most of women have Hanky Panky in their drawer. There's so much love around it, but it's way more than just, products. It's manufactured here in New York. Most of the production is here in Queens and New Jersey. That's where the FIT students are going to see how a product is made. And there is so much passion, people working on this product. They've been around for 30 years. They know lace better than anyone, but what they developed that I thought was amazing, going back to your question, is the love and the deep care for women. So it's not just about how you project yourself to the world, right? Like your body and how you look like in underwear and in apparel. It's really understanding women in depth. What do you need to move? Like how your anatomy is made, like what makes you feel comfortable, what makes you feel good and your best during the day. And that's what they incorporated along the way. What they didn't do though was really to bring that to life. So this brand really grew without really telling the story, and created some very organic, authentic love. This is a 5-star rating product. This is I lead creative, brand, digital, and e-com. Like it's the first time I see a customer service team that comes to work smiling every day because they get more love than they can complain. So I think there's something amazing behind being, purpose-driven. To me, it means, not only sustainability or causes or philanthropy. It's really how you deal and run your business. And I'm lucky enough to be, in a leadership team where the heritage and this DNA transpires in everything we do.
Beautiful. So how does that impact your approach to marketing?
Yeah, I think it's, so first when I started 7 months ago, so I'm still very new to Hanky Panky. So I will talk about how I approached this thing. I started really to think about what's the DNA, what's the heritage, why do these women show so much love to the brand? So I really did a lot of research and interviews and spent time with customers and really understood the emotional drivers behind it. Yep. Then really like building this brand platform with the leadership team and spending time with them, talking about the values, talking about what we want to achieve, but more specifically, why do we exist and what are we bringing to the world that is positive? Out of, us having the most comfortable thong in the world, and this is what we sell, but this is why are we doing that? So we built an amazing platform that is nothing new, just expressing what they created in the first place, that aims at like uplifting and lifting up all the versions of women. And what I mean by this is women, people who identify as women also, and all the versions of us. So as a woman, you wake up every morning and you're a different person. You have a different mood. Some days you want to feel, sexy. Some other days you just want to be, beach watching, Netflix. It's fine. And you go through your life cycle, like you're a young lady, and then, you date, and then you get married, and then you're pregnant, you have post-pregnancy, and then menopause. Like a lot of things are happening to women. And something that, really resonated with me was that only 29% of women felt represented in the US in advertising. only 29%, 44% of men. So what are we doing wrong? We're not understanding women in depth and what they want to achieve. So that's what I'm bringing to my marketing, is how do I uplift and lift up women physically, emotionally, every day without taboos, and supporting them, whatever are their choices. And one example that I know we talked about was, when we talk about sustainability is key for us and to our customers. They started way back at the beginning, producing here, taking care of their workers. But you have to make it accessible to your customers. They have to understand how they can impact things with you. And something that we launched a few years ago called Laundry Cycle was about recycling your underwear. So if you think about, what's impacting and getting in, our landfill, it's mostly apparel. But apparel has options. You can donate, you can recycle, you can do a lot of things, you can resell. The resale industry is like booming. But you do not donate or recycle your underwear, and that is a big issue. So we started with that, and we said, how can we engage women and get them into the process of recycling their underwear? So do you mind, Rachel, if I show you something? If I share my screen?
Love it. Are you able? You're able to share screen? Yes.
Yeah, let's try.
Yeah, let's show it. I think
All right.
It looks fantastic.
All right, let's see if it works. You let me know. Can you see it?
I sure can.
Awesome. So what we've done is we create a new look and feel to something that is like about sustainability, recycling. It's always green. It's always, a little bit boring and a lot of text, right? And we really thought about what does it take? What is the process for women? So something that we found out, really being customer centric, was that we all have, most of us, so I can relate to that, you have a drawer full of underwear, right? Maybe you use what's, at the top of your drawer.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, but you have a lot of other things going on in this drawer that you forgot about. So sometimes it's time just to clean up. And a lot of women told us also that, they keep them, or they don't know why. They're emotionally linked to this underwear, even if this one is not comfortable anymore, if there are holes in it. And I really thought about, it's the same thing as a relationship with someone, when you don't want to let go. So we wanted to help women let go of an old relationship. And sometimes it's time. And we created this campaign. It's just the website, but it's just to give you an idea that, related to breaking up with your old undies. And as you can see just below, it's it's not me, it's you. You were never supportive. There are holes in our relationship.
It's fantastic.
And we created a full thing.
The delightful element of this is really, I think, something so special.
And that's why we're getting way more women engaged with this program than we thought. So it tells you, how much. And I'm talking about women, it could be men too. If you bring something that is meaningful, easy to understand, that they can relate to, they want to be part of it. So it's really about, so we recycle underwear. You can send your underwear for free. We work with an organization, a nonprofit called Printtree, recycle your undies. So we bring your acts in a better place. We do it respectfully. And when we launched this campaign, like you can see here, when we launched this campaign, we partnered with an ice cream brand, and we provided free ice cream for women to, deal with the breakup and how hard it was to do so. So it's just being playful with topics that are more serious.
I love it. It's such a brilliant way of bringing it all together in a way that's meaningful, but also really fun, and I think unique. I hope you've entered that for some awards. It's a fantastic.
It's only you, so we'll see where it goes.
I may have to use it myself. So let's pivot a little bit, because this setup is tremendous, but the reality is there's always challenges, right? So what are the biggest challenges you faced in your career implementing purpose-led programs? And obviously, feel free to speak beyond Hanky Panky.
Yeah, so without referring to specific brands, everyone and up to, senior leadership is always, up to defining what's the brand purpose. It helps a lot in many ways, right? But it has to be something that informs, how you do your business every day. So I'm not saying that being purpose driven is forgetting about, performance. I need e-com, like I have goals. I want to make sure that I support, the company's growth, but I think we can do that with like being purpose driven. And one example with Hanky Panky is that the growth is coming from Gen Z and millennials today. Why? Because being purpose driven resonates with them. Things that maybe 10 years ago, we thought, oh, okay, that's great. They're doing that and was not really a driver of purchase, but right now it is. They won't pay more for it. It has to be core of your like at the core of what you do every day. And I think that's where I was challenged most of the time. Just the excitement of getting, the purpose done and written, but not seeing, if the full business embracing it day to day. Purpose is something that not only informs your marketing, but informs where you invest, informs how you choose suppliers, informs where you produce, informs your product innovation also. If I want to uplift all the versions of them, it means all the versions of them. So like, what does it mean from a product perspective? How do I design products? So I think the biggest challenge that I faced was there is a lot of excitement and people are talking about it a lot, but really living through it and breathing and embracing it from the top of the company to everyone and every employee is a challenge that I'm not facing today. That's why I joined and I'm excited to be there.
I think that's tremendous. So you talked a lot about sort of like large companies, shared talk tracks, syncing teams and roadmaps, when we were on the phone earlier this week. And I think, obviously, part of the challenges in connecting it all, as you mentioned, on the other end of that, of course, there's, opportunities. So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, we talked about impact and, pioneering solutions, but again, it's sort of mapped back into those challenges. So maybe talk us through like a use case or, how you see that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think I see a lot of opportunities, but I will just say on marketing and how I think, the marketing, at least the role of the CMO is evolving. Of course, you own, creating this brand purpose and bringing it to life and communicating on it. But the way you structure your team to be customer focused and purpose driven is essential. So one example is this purpose that we have informs our customer experience online. For example, we want to uplift all the versions of women. They have to feel that they're represented. They have to feel that the experience is right for them. They have to feel that the product is for them. They have to feel that the fit experience is for them too, and uplift them along the way. How many times, I just ran a research, I got results yesterday. 72% of US women say that shopping for bras is painful, 72%. So how do we make it less painful? So it's related to our purpose, but it impacts how we think about customer experience. So it's how it impacts your e-com team, but also how it will impact, my creative team and how we shoot products. And we were just shooting with, it's funny enough, it's Pride Month. So of course, a lot of brands will talk about Pride, and we were talking about how do we do it authentically to who we are. We launched, underwear for men, for transgenders, like a long time ago, but we didn't want to come and do some rainbow washing. Like, what makes it authentic to who we are? So we shot with an amazing crew called Switch and Play in Brooklyn. It's a queer show. And they told us so many things that are so aspirational. How much freedom they found in intimates and lingerie and wearing hanky panky as they were thinking and evolving and looking for who they are, right? We're all like trying to get to who we are and expressing ourselves. And I think that is the main thing, is when you know what is your purpose, working with people, listening, getting, as much insight as you can, so you can improve your product and the experience you're delivering in an authentic way. It's not just, beautiful press releases saying like we're supporting this charity today. Of course we do, but it goes behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that trend a bit. We work with a lingerie company also that just launched this beautiful men's Japanese collaboration. They're a US company, and I'm sure that, the timing is purposeful, but again, to sort of really lean into all of those opportunities in the underwear category that maybe had not been brought to the forefront before, I think is a beautiful use of purpose. So let's talk a little bit about, to that end, trends. I set myself up. So what is a trend or a technology or an opportunity that you're following and excited about for the future? And what do you want to learn more? We talked about sort of that conversation, live streaming, so on and so forth,
Yeah, and I've always been very curious, and I know everything that we are all talking about. What is relevant for me in my role today is live streaming for sure, because I feel like having a purpose gives you a why. I'm answering a question that I'm seeing in the chat at the same time. Having a brand purpose informs what you stand for and the actions you make, right? It's not just informing your creative process. So it's how you create products, how you bring them to life. It's how you sustain growth without impacting, negatively the planet. So it's very different. So going back to your question, having, a purpose and a why and values, you want to communicate them with your customers. I'm lucky enough to have very loyal, engaged customers who've been with us for years. I've never seen such a healthy funnel where, when you get in, you never go elsewhere, which is amazing. But I need a platform where I can talk with women, where the brand can connect, make a difference, talk about female and women truth and taboos and all of this without judgment, because my brand purpose, answering the second question, is uplifting and lifting up all the versions of women. And I want to be able to support their choices. If a woman decides to not have kids, she's judged every day. So how do we make sure that we address that? If a woman is experiencing, I'm really getting into like the taboo side of like everything about women, but can we talk about sexual wellness for the female gaze and not for men? And like having a platform where I can have like a two-way discussion with women, a platform where they feel heard and not judged. That's something that I'm very, very passionate about and exploring right now. Then now everyone talks about the metaverse. I think this is an opportunity for many brands, and specifically on Roblox, where there are people, because you can also talk about the others. There is not so much of an audience yet, but I think there's something amazing around the inclusivity of the platform. Like you can go there without being judged by how you look like. You create something that can be you without, preconceived ideas of who you are. And it could be an amazing, platform also to have profound and authentic discussions and two-way discussions. So that's really specific to Hanky Panky, but of course I find it exciting, these brands doing like their amazing NFTs and creating their stores, a lot of things going on, but live streaming will be first for us.
How do you, so in a perfect world, like what would that feedback loop be like for you as it relates to the brand and live streaming?
I think it's like having discussions out of our product, understanding women. There are not so many places where you can, and if you look at social media, where you're not just talking about what you project to the world and what people, it's hard on social because you will always be judged, right? So I'm just, in the perfect world, I would love to have a platform where we can go as women or people who identify as women and really get the full feminine energy out there, talk about choices, talk to experts, ask the questions we were asking maybe if we're lucky enough to our best friend. But there are a lot of things going on for women who, I don't know, went through pregnancy. Like I was lucky enough to have a best friend and a mom to talk to, but like if I knew, like how can we really talk about these things and the inner voices that women have that kind of, you know, hurt their evolution and their empowerment, because we tell ourselves a lot of stories that are not helping us grow. So getting really this uplifting experience from others will be, you know, a dream.
Fantastic. So let's broaden it a little bit, since I feel like we've done a really good deep dive on Hanky Panky, take the pressure off a little bit. What trends are you seeing in purpose-driven marketing space that inspire you? And any brands that you think are doing it really well? So, you know, trends and any particular brand examples you want to cite.
Yeah, I think the most obvious one are, you know, these brands that are really after activism and empowering women, and kind of breaking the cliches and taboos. Like I loved, this is an old one, but you remember the Always one, Like a Girl, where they asked, you know, hundreds of young girls, but also women, what does it mean when we say, hey, you're running like a girl, or you're doing things like a girl? And really, like, this is like, I think, you know, impacting positively the society so we can rethink how we behave every day. So that's kind of the obvious one. But then I was just talking, I was at a conference with the chief customer officer of REI, and everything they do it and make decisions through the eyes of their members. I think all of these companies that will be more customer focused, but not just by, you know, just feeling good about saying it, but customer focus at their core. That's the core. That's why REI is what they are. It's just like they understood customers. They look at how they behave. They build a purpose that way. So it's first, what do the members want? That informs a lot of innovation. So very inspiring.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, for me, the social conscious piece has always resonated with me. I kind of have a bleeding heart that way. So like, you know, early days of, you know, Tom's and Allbirds and sort of really getting out there and, you know, help global communities, you know, whether it's water or shoes or, you know, whatever that looks like, and, you know, far off places, and really taking on a huge onus that, you know, affects profitability, but also, you know, is truly core to the, you know, ethos and DNA of the brand, but doing good out there is something that always stays with me. I am a longtime Nike fan. You know, I used to joke when I was little, if I ever went to work for a brand, it would like be Nike or Chanel, and those were the only two that I could ever conceive of working for, you know, when I was a little girl dreaming. But I'm still a fan of Nike, and I think, you know, to activism and sort of, you know, getting extreme in some of their examples, but that's how we shake the trees, right? And taking some important stances in the world. It's funny, I had put P&G on my list also, but, you know, Dove, I think, has done it so beautifully and iterating year after year on, you know, an important theme like that. And then even just, you know, old friends and clients, something I had learned, Levi's is a longtime client of mine, and I never knew this, but the, you know, headquarters in San Francisco, they've always recycled denim, and the whole infrastructure of the building in the piping is recycled denim. And I mean, they were, you know, doing this 50 years ago before, you know, climate control and change has been on the docket for a long time, but never as loud as it is now. But, you know, to have companies having truly thought about it, you know, back in the day, to me, those kinds of statements and impacts in the world are like, that's something that they could authentically shout even louder. And frankly,
and you're right to say something that is crucial. It's not just about doing good. It impacts the bottom line. Like, if these companies will drive more profit, like Hanky Panky has been profitable since day one and is outpacing the market right now. It's not because like there are many, you know, factors to that, but I really believe that because it's core to who they are. Levi's is a great example. Like there is nothing we add to our product that we cannot recycle or is not recycled before. And we're not even telling customers, it's just because it's core to who we are. It's just, you have to reduce your impact, and if possible, really find a way to drive a positive impact. That's what we're working on. But it drives business.
Of course. I'm going to actually switch to one of the questions that are in the box. So do you see brand purpose different than brand positioning / unique selling proposition? If so, can you elaborate on that?
On my view,
Not even specific to Hanky Panky for
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and it's my opinion on that, and there are a lot of theories about that, but the way I see that is your positioning, your USP are related to the product you bring to life. So the positioning of my products, my line, their unique selling proposition supports they support my my purpose. So we're for each of our categories and new launches, we have a positioning, we have, we know why does it, why do we launch? What are the reasons why? How do we drive differentiation? But it supports our brand purpose. The brand purpose is not related to your products directly. Is why does the company exist? How do you impact positively? If it's not people, the planet, the society, your industry, and then products will support it. But it's not related to your product per se. It's really related to who you are and what you want to achieve. So the purpose will always work with your mission, and then you have products with different positioning. But that's the way I built it along the way.
Sounds good. So we started to touch on this. I'm going to come back to it just for a second. Opportunities that you see for brand purpose marketing in the metaverse. I know you touched on it earlier as it relates to Hanky Panky, and I think it's interesting how you can sort of come as you are or want to be, or not in sort of a dreamscape, right, in the metaverse, where you can sort of body positivity becomes a whole sort of different element of your self. But I guess on a broader scale, with your experience, agencies, brand, so on and so forth, where do you see brand purpose marketing in the metaverse at a larger scale?
Yeah, I think at the larger scale, there's the sustainability play there, because you're not producing. I come from the apparel industry. It's the production, the supply chain related to the apparel industry is huge. So yeah, if you could live in a world where you do not produce as much as we do, that would be fantastic. I think there's something about connections also. Like my daughter is 10. Like, she's not playing Barbies or Lego as we used to. Like, she's like doing that on Roblox with her friends. And that's how she builds relationships and connections and meet other people. So of course it has to be controlled, but I think there's like an amazing thing. As you can say, I'm French. My family is in Europe, in Finland, in Sweden, in France. If I could see them through, in the metaverse more frequently than just flying, that'd be amazing. I think there's something about, sustainability, connecting people, inclusivity that is amazing. My big question about the metaverse, and I think it was raised many times, is if you see, fictions and movies that kind of predicted the metaverse, it's always been because the world we live in is so awful that you want to disconnect and get in the virtual world, right? Are we there yet? I don't think so. So like my main question will be like, how big and what place would it take in our lives in the future? And I think all brands should look at it from their lens and their purpose.
I know it's getting interesting, and I look forward to it as well. I mean, the sort of the daily press and different brands that are launching integrations into the metaverse, be it music festivals or music awards, which I think it all feels sort of like interesting and relatable and different, but that piece of it hasn't quite popped. in the metaverse piece of it, to me, I feel like, you know, it's very present in the NFT art and sort of NFT brand play right now, maybe because of, I don't know, the frivolity of it. It feels like, you know, very fun and very now and attention grabbing. So I think that, you know, wrapping brand purpose into those moments is huge because they're massive PR opportunities, and, you know, the audience and appetite is there. So I appreciate seeing it coming to life in that way. Do you think that purpose-driven marketing is more effective for certain products or services or categories?
No, I don't think so. I think, you know, being purpose-driven means that you know why you do your job, why you join the company, why this company exists. I think, you know, if we even refer to something they didn't ask me, but it's very difficult for a lot of CMOs also to hire great talents right now. It's a challenge, but when you're purpose driven, like people want to know why they come to work every day, what impact are they making? So regardless of the product you carry and the services, like it's an amazing tool to drive creativity, you know, culture, help you hiring, but also define your sustainability play and the causes you want to support. So I think it impacts all the departments of each company. But I think, you know, we have discussions right now around being purpose driven. I heard so many times other brands saying like it's being authentic. It's more than being authentic. It's being like, it's really driving it day to day and making sure that you make decisions through that. It could be services, it could be tech. I moved from the Silicon Valley, where you don't pitch something to investors if you don't have a purpose on top of your pitch deck. So I think it's just for everyone. It's very relevant.
Yeah, I mean, and only is only a good thing if it's, you know, sort of a mandatory, you know, starting position for sort of any business plan that is, you know, created today. It's a definite positive of the moment. So as we're coming towards the end, I'd love if you, and we, you know, we've reviewed a lot, right, as it relates to sort of all elements of the marketing cycle, from, you know, a great founder story to, you know, development, to later being able to rely on that as, you know, a part of the user experience, challenges and opportunities in the space. What advice can you give to the folks who are listening on purpose-driven marketing and, you know, this greater topic at hand? Kind of put it all together for us, and a little kiss on the way out. But you've done it so beautifully, right? I mean, any advice that you can share?
I think what's important, at least from my perspective, and I think a lot of brands are thinking about that right now, is being customer obsessed in everything you do. It's not being obsessed by your product, your sell-through, and your price points. That's one way to look at your business, is looking at, you know, the customers you have, what they want, where are they, what do they need, what will they need, you know, makes a big difference. And that's how you drive growth. Because if you just look at your NPD data, you can just say, oh yeah, loungewear did well, so let's launch another legging. How many leggings do we need? So I think it's just like, it's really being like curious, understanding, listening to customers, and understand not just their rational behavior, but their emotional behavior. How do they want to feel? What's going on in their mind? What is impacting them? What is their environment? How can I be part of it? And how can I impact them positively? Then you've done half of the job of creating a purpose. And no one ever, even at the highest level, can argue with what the customer is saying, right? So it's also like an piece of advice for all marketers out there: bring data, bring customers' insights. No one can argue with that. People can argue with the color of the next design, but they cannot argue about, you know, on customers. So I would say customer obsession and being customer obsessed every day leads you to a great purpose, but also helps you evangelize it and make sure that it's integrated in all the steps of your product development and customer experience.
Beautiful. I'm just checking to see if we have any other questions. Otherwise, I think that's kind of a beautiful way to end. And I mean, I know I really appreciated getting to know you. I think your feedback and learnings here have been wonderful. Sorry, it wasn't the dog. It's trash day. Here we are, 2.5 years later, still dealing with the Zoom elements. It's never dull. But truly, thank you for sharing such an inspired story. I learned so much from you in the last 2 sessions that we've had with the ability to chat and, you know, agree wholeheartedly as a rabid consumer of things. You know, having sort of that, you know, level of attention from a brand is truly meaningful. There's so many choices out there. And, you know, in today's environment, being able to, you know, make choices around a brand that you bring into your home, that you put so close to your body as a hanky-panky item, and then having the opportunity to, you know, feel good about that, right? You're involved in a company that has a beautiful ethos, that has a really cool and unique and frankly innovative recycling program. And, you know, hoping that maybe there'll be more products and SKUs in the future. I think the founders
It's
will
coming,
expand.
a lot of innovation coming our way, and I invite all of you women out there to revisit your drawer and use Luxury Cycle. I think that's the great time for that. But thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Brand Innovators. Always, you know, a pleasure to be part of the discussion and learn from everyone. So hopefully I brought some actionable insights, but looking forward to being part of other events.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. It was a really great conversation, and I will not get over all those breakup lines on your recycling site. That was the best. Everybody needs to take some crib notes for that.
Hankypanky.com, people.
There you go. And thank you, Lenny, added to the Q&A. Wanted to thank you for the great conversation. So thank you, everyone. This is actually wrapping up our day. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us and tuning in. Once again, a shout out to our speakers, our sponsors, and of course you, our audience. Be sure to check out our Brand Innovation